Hi everyone, this is Gabe Erickson, CEO of Warrior Transition Outdoors. You're joining us for our second edition of Freedom Friday, and we are actually in a very special location, the studio at North Rim in Portland. Thank you, Mike Dinapoli, for hosting us. And it's exciting to be here. I'm out here for the holidays, and I thought, how do I just like keep this going with some good stories and some good people, and happen to know a good friend of mine out in Vancouver joined us here at the studio, Aaron Silbernagel.
Silbernagel,
Got
yes, sir.
Marine veteran.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. So the heart of, just for your background, because this is fairly new, but Freedom Friday, I love the shirt. You got it right there. You're rocking it. So just trying to share stories and help people, like from WTO standpoint, we've talked a lot about breaking the broken veteran narrative, right? Like, how do we like showcase and tell the story in a way, even if there are tough things, but in a way that's going to ultimately lead to more freedom for more veterans. You know, I think as a civilian myself, I think it's a shame that you guys do so much for us, and then you come home and you fought for our freedom and we're not fighting for yours. So I feel like this is a chance to, I don't know, somehow fight for the freedom of veterans through stories, through just changing that narrative, dude, you know? So tell us about your background, your history in the military, and then we'll kind of get into some topics.
Oh, perfect. So I want to go a little bit before I went into the military. So I was married to my wife of 24 years now, but we have 4 kids.
That's awesome.
And that's a pretty important thing, because going into the Marine Corps, being married with 1 kid, and I was 24 going through boot camp. So I already had some life experience, unlike almost everybody else in my boot camp class. So I think that kind of gave me a little head start on just knowing kind of how things work, knowing when to shut my mouth and when to just shut up and listen. So it was really important in that aspect of maturing as a Marine a lot faster than others. But before that, so it was fun though. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I did my first 4 in the infantry, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, Alpha Company. We were a boat company. 2 combat tours to Iraq, which was amazing from different aspects. And then my second 4 years, I was a combat marksmanship instructor over at Quantico, Virginia. So that was pretty interesting, training all the officers and sustainment level Marines that were over there stationed in the DC area. So it was a good experience, just bringing my combat experience to the rifle range and being able to show that to some of the lieutenants, because right after they graduate OCS and TBS, off to the fleet they were going, so they would be using this stuff pretty much right away. Yeah. But I concluded my Marine Corps tour over at Quantico, and then found I was coming back here to Vancouver, Washington. So we had to travel across the country again, but it was a good experience, and I think I'm a better person for it. Yeah. But time will tell.
So you kind of hit boot camp with the wife before you joined the military.
Yes. Yeah. That was interesting, because we got our first phone call home was like a 15-second. Literally, you had to you have something on the wall right in front of you. You just read that, and then you say goodbye. You don't even say I love you.
That's how boot camp was.
That's how boot camp was, yeah. What? So it was just like, yep, I'm here. I'm good. I'll see you in 2.5 months, and then click.
Oh my gosh.
And so she was like, okay, so this is how it's going to be in the military, huh? And there was a couple times where I called from Iraq, and we only had sat phones at the time, satellite phones. And literally, she would sit in the house and wait for me to call. And the one time I called, she missed my phone call. She just happened to go out to get the mail when I called.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. Talk about devastating on both of our.
I would say, bring me into like you're in Iraq, and you're hoping just for a connection, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
What was like? Bring me to that moment. Like, tell me about that. That's interesting.
It was tough. So you only get the sat phone like every month, and then it rotates through the platoons, and then finally you get your shot, and you really don't have a time. You can't coordinate with back home. It's whenever you get the phone. So making that phone call, I was super excited. And then like 5-6 rings into it. It's just not happening. And so I had to hit end because I had to pass the phone off because, again, we'd only probably get maybe a minute or two. And that was tough.
Yeah.
That was really tough. I remember going back to my rack and just kind of sitting there and, yeah, this kind of sucks because now the only chance I had to talk to my wife and my son, and I missed it. So now I got to wait 3 more months.
That's wild.
So, yeah.
Those are things you just like, especially as a civilian, you don't hear that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so it just helps me to like relate to you that much more because
Yep.
I can relate to the longing to connect with family and different things like
Oh,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I think like even just hearing those little stories that don't make it into the press, you know,
Yeah.
like it just kind of rounds out in my mind. And we talked with Mike about the human level of things, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the human level of what you went through.
Yeah.
Abroad. So that's wild, man. So you had told me like it was kind of, you had to make some moves that weren't necessarily popular with everyone in your
in the
platoon
unit
or company.
Yeah.
Or...
It was within the company. Yeah. Yeah. My reenlistment was a little bit of a surprise to actually even my wife. I remember I came home one day after I reenlisted. I hadn't talked to her at all during this whole process. And then we were eating pizza. And I just said, oh, yeah, by the way, sweetie, I reenlisted and we're moving in 2 weeks and we're going to Virginia.
Oh, my gosh.
And she just kind of looked at me like, are you freaking kidding me? And I'm like, nope, I reenlisted. So because they were getting ready to go on a 3rd deployment and it wasn't giving us time to transition out. So I was like, well, I need some time. So to buy some time, I reenlisted for 4 years. And that's when I got sent to Quantico as a marksmanship instructor, which is a non-deploying unit. So that gave me 4.5 years or so in CONUS, in country, so I could, find a job, kind of do my next steps.
Because otherwise, just bring me in the timeline of that, you would have been, you were supposed to get out, but they were going to deploy you anyway, right?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yep. So I was, 9 months out from my EAS. And that's when the company was like, hey, we did a drug deal with another battalion. They're going to get a boot drop from SOI, School of Infantry, with all the new recruits. In exchange, they're going to give 1-4 all of the boots, and 1-4 is going to give them all the combat vets. So all of us who were, 2 tours in, looking forward to getting out, they're like, hey, I know you have like 9 months to go, but we're going to send you back over here. I think it was 3-5, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines.
Yeah.
But they said, you're going to go over there and you're going to go on a 3rd combat deployment and you're going to EAS from Kuwait. I'm like, that's a horrible idea. Why would you do that to us?
Yeah.
I mean, we're expecting to get what we call SEPs and TAPs classes, go do an easy duty at like the base pool or the gym or something easy for the next few months so we can start to that transition. But yeah, they're like, well, we need one more tour out of you. So instead of doing that, I reenlisted. I kind of beat them at their own game, so to speak, and was able to go over to Quantico and continue my Marine Corps. So
yeah, so for some context, like why WTO was created, the transition part of our name is because, that's a perfect story as to why. Like if you had stuck it out, a lot of men and women are getting out of the military with no transition support or time or anything. And here, you were supposed to have 9 months even, which it's supposed to be like a year.
Right. I think now it's a year, but at the time in 2010, I don't know. They didn't.
I think they made it a year in like 2015 or something like that.
Okay. Well, that would make sense because that's kind of important.
Yeah. But that's kind of why we started, man, was because of that story, and you could have been out 4 years prior. Obviously everything happens for a reason. I'm sure you learned a lot.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah.
I learned so much on the rifle range and just dealing with officers and how educated people can still be a little crazy around guns. It's just like, what are you doing? Safety first, right? But it turned out to be really good. It gave us time as a family just to kind of grow. And it gave me a chance to actually be in the Marine Corps and be a Marine. Because we were over in D.C., so there was a lot of extra events that we could do. We get dressed up in our dress blues. Yeah. We go do congressional stuff. I hosted a lot of congressional shoots down at Quantico. 20 or 30 of them would come out and they'd say, "Hey, Sergeant Silbernagel, you want to run the range?" I'm like, "Sure, I can do that."
Yeah.
But yeah, we get to just meet a whole bunch of cool people and shoot guns. I mean,
That's cool.
What don't you like about that?
Yeah. So what made you eventually say like, okay, now's the time, I'm getting out, and then tell me about that transition to civilian life. Like, what was that like for you?
So my transition to civilian was very bumpy because right as I was getting out in 2010, I already contacted the Army and said, "Hey, I want to be an officer." So my plan was get out in June of 2010 out of the Marine Corps and cycle straight into the Army OCS program in like July. So that was all set up. Paperwork was in. June comes around. Okay, I've got an EAS, so I got to go back to my home of record, which is here in Vancouver, Washington. So I had to travel all the way back across the United States from Virginia. So we get here. We're living with my wife's parents because it's going to be temporary, and get my leave date for like September. So I've got a couple of months to kind of burn.
Sure.
And one of my buddies, who I've known for a long time, he gives me a call. He's like, "Hey, do you want a job?" I was like, "Sure, I got a couple months to spare. I'll take a job." He's like, "Well, my dad's, he works over at Bonneville Power, and they need a contractor for a material handler, working at the warehouse kind of stuff." I was like, "Sure, I'll take that." So, long story short, got hired on there as the contractor, and then about the same time, the Army, they were pushing my date back because the graduates from West Point, if they go between their junior and senior year of college of West Point to go through OCS, and if they fail, then they have to get pushed to the next year after they graduate. Well, what that does is now those numbers now get pushed, and anybody who is prior enlisted, such as myself, we're last priority. So all of those slots got taken up by all those graduates who failed OCS the first time.
Crazy.
So yeah, I got pushed off like 6 months. I was like, okay, that's fine. I got a job. I have a wife and three kids at this point, so we can deal with it. And that happened 3 more times over the next year and a half.
Jeez.
So my transition out of the Marine Corps was supposed to be only a month and a half, turned out to be like a year and a half. And finally, I was in such a good civilian job, looking more and more at the Army and how they run things. No offense to all the Army guys out there.
I know,
sorry.
right?
I just happen to have a really horrible Army experience. But I hope they don't mind that. But anyway, so yeah, I decided, you know what? I'll just not go to the Army and I'll just stay at my current civilian job. And contracting at the beginning of it, contracted for 6 years until 2016, then got hired on full time. And I've been there ever since, kind of doing the same thing.
Wow.
And so it was a roundabout sort of good and bad transition. But yeah, I mean, we've been super blessed. I've got a great job. We've got 4 kids now. And I don't know if we would have this kind of a story had I stayed in the Marine Corps or even went into the Army.
Yeah, yeah. Everything happens for a reason at the end of the day, like when it's, something like that, pushing it back. And
oh, it's frustrating.
you got to transition without even realizing you were transitioning.
Right.
Like that's
because in my mind, I was not transitioning.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm just waiting for the next stage. And it's like, whoa, the next stage doesn't come.
Yep.
You're actually already in it.
Yeah. Now
So that was interesting.
You did share some like new world stuff, like, okay, now I'm in the civilian world. Like, what is this electric bill? Like, you shared a couple stories like that.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about like what stood out to you about the civilian world, or stands out to you still. Maybe it's the people, maybe it's electric bills. I don't know, but
well, so the bill side of it, that's my wife. She's the numbers. I just bring home the bacon. She cooks it and spends it. But yeah, we didn't realize, there was like electric bills and gas bills and garbage bills, because in the Marine Corps, everything's rolled into your BAH and it's already paid. You don't really have to even look at it. So yeah, that was kind of an eye opener for my wife when, the electric bill is so high in the wintertime because we're trying to keep warm. And she's like, "Oh, well, we can't keep it at 75 anymore, sweetie. We got to, 67, 60. I'm like, honey, I got to wear a coat in my own house. But you know what? When you're that young and you're trying to save money here and there, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a definitely an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, it's not on Uncle Sam anymore paying for that stuff. So
no, it's on us.
I've told that story to another civilian since you shared it with me. And it's just, again, it's one of those like human creating moments of like, oh my gosh, I didn't like even think about that. And I think that's what I love about sharing stories is like, it just helps people get out of their perception of things and into reality of things,
Yeah.
So, but what else about the civilian world, for better or worse, has stood out to you?
Well, a big thing, where I work is Bonneville, and we have a lot of veterans. So that's really cool to have that kind of camaraderie going into it. Me being one of the only Marines, they always gang up on me. It's cool. I can usually take about 15 to 20 of them at a time. But all those Air Force guys I work with. But no, it's fun. But it was a definite transition of, when I was in the Marine Corps, showing up in formation every morning and then going through a set schedule during the day. And, we would be all alpha males, if we have downtime, we're like wrestling in the lounge or doing something stupid. But here, yeah, it's 40 hours a week, you just come in, you do your own thing. And a lot of times in my specific area where I'm at, I'm in the sales and recovery area. I can go literally 3 days with only talking to like one person, and which is good and bad. I enjoy my alone time as well because I like just to sit down and work. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot of human connection if I don't want it. If I do, I actually have to go seek it out. I've got to get up from my desk, go walk around, go talk to people.
And the military just naturally kind of provided that.
Well, yeah, because you're with your squad, your team, your unit, or whatever. And you're all right there all the time. Yeah. So that was a huge change.
Yeah, for sure. I know, when I meet a lot of veterans, and it seems like you're a success story when it comes to the transition.
I think so.
True.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What were some of the things that, like, maybe it's about you, or I'm hoping that people listening to this are gathering, like that Freedom Friday aspect of like, okay, that's what it was about him. That, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't even have the words for it because it's like a thing.
Right.
It's
not really tangible. It's more of like a spiritual kind of a thing. Well, I'm a Christian. My wife's a Christian. We try and have Christian values in our family, and I think that really helped because that has grounded my relationship with my wife and my kids. So having that Christian aspect of, I'm the father. Yeah, I have to be Mr. Discipline, but I also have to be that tender warrior. Stu Weber's book, Tender Warrior. I don't know if you know about it.
No, I don't.
Super great book. But using those kind of principles of being that tender warrior is like, yeah, I can discipline, but I can do it in a loving spirit. And through our faith, that's kind of what we do. And I think that is kind of the key element that has made not only my transition so successful, but the lack of the plan A coming to fruition, and having to go to a plan B without even knowing it.
Yeah.
Having that spiritual connection and having that Christian relationship with Jesus, and because that's what really drives me every day as I get up. I say my prayer, Lord, help me today, help me to, just do what you want me to do here on earth, whatever that looks like. Yeah. And then when I go to work, I get into great conversations with people I work with. Spiritual conversations, and then just, where are they at? Yeah. And a lot of them, they don't know. They're not Christians. They don't read the Bible. But, yeah, those kinds of interactions every day, it's just super powerful. And that's why I think I'm so successful, is because it's not me. I'm just receiving these blessings, and I try and bless others as I've been blessed.
That's profound, man. It's... WTO is not a faith-based organization per se, but we want people to have the freedom to express whatever their faith is, right? Yep. Be that nothing or Christianity or just, whatever it is, but there's a spiritual component to all of us.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think even what you're hitting on there is like, did you always have that even through the military? Like,
Yeah, I went
did?
into the Marine Corps being a Christian. Yeah.
Okay.
And that helped me a lot. During boot camp, I remember standing outside the chow hall when you're done eating, because you got to eat really fast. But you go out and you stand in formation and you wait for the rest of your platoon. And I would always have my my New Testament Psalms and Proverbs that they give you, and I have that in my breast pocket. And I just take it out, read a couple of verses, and then say a quick prayer. And then even when I was over in Iraq, met one of my great buddies, Johnny Crespo. Love that guy.
He's listening right now, like, woohoo!
I hope so. I hope so. But yeah, we started doing Bible studies and whatnot, and it was a great thing, because about 30 or 40 people actually ended up coming around us and helping out. So it was really cool.
That's wild.
Yeah, going back to Johnny Crespo, and yeah, when we were in Iraq, we had that Bible study, and it was really cool to get that experience and to get those other Marines who normally wouldn't even read the Bible. But I think in that context of where we were at, like in Baghdad and Diwania and getting shot at every once in a while, that kind of changes perspective for some people.
Yeah.
And so that gave Johnny and I the opportunity to minister to some of the people. And I think that was really important.
Yeah.
So.
That's super cool, man. I'm curious, like, what, for people who, Christian or otherwise, listening, what is it about faith or spirituality that got you outside of yourself to help you have a successful transition? Is it like a death to self kind of thing? Like, so even though, I mean, you're in the military, man, to me, like, that's self-sacrifice,
Yeah.
What is it, for veterans listening to this, like, what, and if they're sitting at home and maybe we hear this all the time, I'm self-isolating. I don't know. A lot of people might say they are Christian. They're still like having issues.
Well, even in our self-isolation, if you believe, God is always there. Jesus is always right next to you. No matter how isolated you might feel, he's always there. And he's never going to leave you. Unlike, humans who come and go throughout your life, best friends come and go, friends, whatever. Jesus is, and God is that constant. They're never going to leave you. So I think having that inside, no matter what you're going through or what I was going through in the Marine Corps, and then transitioning, even in a combat zone, it was weird, because I always knew that Jesus was there, protecting me while everything was going on. So it kind of gives you a sense of freedom. Yeah. Of like, oh, I don't have to worry about this, because my life is in the hands of my faith and my God. So total freedom. And it's so much easier to walk through life when you're trying to deal with shame, fear, and guilt. If you have that constant of God in your life, you can just lay those on him and just say, all right, what do you want me to do? It's no longer my life per se, but what would you like to have me do? And then within your avenues, wherever you're at, whether it be work, in line at coffee, you can have conversations with people sharing your faith. And I think that's really what tied my experience in of the Marine Corps and civilian life, is just realizing that, hey, I'm never alone. I always have God with me. So how am I going to operate with that?
Real quick, can you think of a moment where you felt that protection? Like, beyond, I know you knew it, but was there a moment where something happened, you're like, oh my gosh, that was
intense?
Like I was just definitely protected, like divinely, did that happen?
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. We were on QRF, which is Quick Reaction Force, and I can't remember if this was, I think it was Al Hilla or Diwania. I can't remember which city in Iraq. But so we get a call that the governor's mansion or whatever had like protesters out front, and they were getting kind of crazy. So we were called. So we come rolling up in our Humvees and our 7-tons. And upon hopping out, our company gunny was like, hey, start searching people. I was like, hey, roger that. So I ran up to the first guy I came to and put him on the ground, and he had the traditional garb on, which is the long man dress. And I don't know the proper word for it.
Yeah. We won't fault you for that.
Thank you. And instead of doing my scrunching technique that I was taught, no, dude, I just reached my hand right into his pocket, start pulling stuff out. And I remember pulling out a hand grenade. I was like, I I sat there and looked at it for about 5 seconds, and my company gunnery sergeant was standing right next to me. And I kind of looked at him and I said, "Hey, Gunny, hold this." And I just handed it off. And he could have pulled the pin as I was pulling it out. I had no idea. But yeah, that was one where I didn't follow my training, and I'm glad God was with me, because that could have been a really bad situation.
Yeah, for everyone.
For myself and the 8 or 10 Marines around me. So yeah, we were definitely watched out on that particular occasion. But that's why it was kind of embarrassing.
Maybe if you hadn't done it that way, though, maybe that would have given him an extra second to do. You just never know.
Yeah,
like, that's a wild story, man. That's crazy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but I was pulling like peanuts and 9mm rounds out of his pocket. I'm like, who mixes their ammo with their snack? That doesn't make sense. But to each his own, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No. Yeah. Last thing, and then we'll get into kind of a wrap up. But I guess as you were talking about like your faith, I think one of the things that kept coming to my mind was like, it gives you a sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. And that's what most people lose when they leave the military. So you had this constant talk about that.
Yeah, because in the military, your purpose is defined by your job. You know, am I in the infantry? Am I motor T? Am I a team leader? Am I a squad leader? You know, that's your purpose in life. I know every day when I get up and I go to work, I'm in charge of 12 other Marines. That's my purpose. When you get out, you have a purpose if you're a husband or a wife or a son or a daughter and all that kind of stuff. But it's not to the same level as identifying as that, you know, I'm a Marine and I'm a team leader or I'm a squad leader. So when you get out, you kind of go from that hero to zero kind of mentality of I'm not in charge of anything anymore. I'm like at the bottom again, and this sucks because I've been here before. And yeah, I liked it when I was in charge of stuff. And everybody inherently wants that responsibility of being in charge of something or having that purpose. And so, yeah, it's really different when you don't have a purpose. And going back to me praying every morning saying, God, what's my purpose today? Mm-hmm. Where do you see my purpose going? Because he will drive your purpose in anything you do. You could be a garbage man. You could be a salesman. You could work at Bonneville Power as a material handler with very little responsibilities whatsoever.
Sounds pretty cushy, man.
Actually, it is. It's a great job, and I'm so blessed to have it. But my purpose isn't I'm a material handler anymore, and not like a Marine. It's I'm a father. I'm a husband. That's my purpose, is to grow up my kids in a godly manner and be a godly husband for my wife, and to lead them and to make sure that their souls are supposed to be in heaven where they're supposed to be. So that's kind of the new purpose.
It's, again, this is all, I want this Friday conversation to be about paradigm shifting, perspective shifting conversations, right? And thinking about, a lot of stories I hear, I managed multi-million dollars worth of equipment and things like that. And really the moment you say I'm a father, like you're managing a person.
Yes.
Like a human being's future. There's this long-term play that might not seem as obvious. Even if you might be a single guy and you got horses or a dog, or it's like, if you look for what around me am I still like caring for that counts on me?
Exactly.
There's a lot out there.
Oh yeah.
So that purpose is like ingrained in just our breath alone, So I think that's a valid question, like Christian or not, anyone listening, civilian or not, military veteran, you name it, like, what is my purpose? If you just asked that and sat there for a second with that, that's probably going to change some people's lives if you just don't know who's watching,
Yeah.
So
purpose is what drives us.
Yeah.
I mean, it gives us purpose in life.
Yeah.
If you have no purpose or you have no future of a purpose, you can get into a pretty dark place pretty quick.
Yeah. Any last thoughts you want to give to people? I took a whole week last week to give all my thoughts. I want you to share with people your last thoughts, thinking about freedom, thinking about Friday. What are Aaron's last words here to liberate some people?
That's a big question, man.
It is, man.
Just to pop it on me in like 10 seconds.
I know.
Wow. Thanks for
and
that.
you have 10 seconds to answer.
Perfect. Well, let me get to it really quick. No, just kind of going back to the purpose. And I mentioned shame, fear, and guilt, because that really drives the inside emotions of us. If we're feeling guilty about something, we get really emotional. But being able to lay that down on your faith, it's a huge relief. And it allows you to operate outside of shame, fear, and guilt. And it gives you that freedom of, I can make a decision, and it can be a bad decision or a stupid decision, but you know what? I can lay that down and I can be redeemed from that. So even if you're continually making bad decisions, you can stop that cycle by feeling that liberation feeling of putting down that shame, fear, and guilt, and then relying on your faith to just drive you towards your purpose.
Sometimes the actual physical, just being like, I'm gonna like take this and like just set it here. I know that looks silly, but like physically doing what you need to do with what you're talking about sometimes helps. And so that's really special, man. All right, Aaron Silbernagel, Marine veteran, thank you for joining us here on Freedom Friday. We want to just thank Mike again with the studio at North Rim, because this has been a phenomenal setup. I mean, we came in, he's got the logo pulled up, and
very cool.
Just an absolute treat to be here. And so if you get a chance, you want to do an online event with Mike or anything like that, just reach out, look up the studio at North Rim, give him a call, thank him for helping veterans. We just want to give him all the shout outs in the world, because this has been awesome. So thanks a lot, man.
Hey, thank you, Gabe. I appreciate it, bud.
And have a great weekend.